Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Ayers Dugout, all the way over to Rattlesnake, all this area up in here. Ton of bait working in this area here. There are some trout that have showed up, starting to show up on the shale, starting to be around that, starting to be on the hard packed sand. That stuff's starting to really pick up. If you haven't been fishing that, you may want to start targeting those particular areas and that type of structure. Moving forward, as we get heading toward into the summertime pattern, it's starting to pick up somewhat. It hasn't full swing yet, but it's getting to that direction. Slide on down here. There's a nice little gut that's running right through here. So some of these times this fish, when these things are dropping out, the fish will slide down off into those deeper guts there, and there's a great area there for you to target that. All the way down this Rattlesnake Point, this complete shoreline here, you've got a lot of different great structure that's in here. You've got scattered shell, you've got mud, you've got grass, you've got drop-offs, you've got cuts and guts, everything. All this area up in here is a great location. Get out, got a great bottom that's here. You can locate fish here. Take your time with this area here when you do that. Remember to incorporate those majors and the minors throughout your fishing days. Down south, so the chicken of the sea, magic grass, supermodels are starting to pick up a little bit for me anyway. I've talked to other people that they have been throwing the bigger versions of whatever bait that they like, and they're starting to see some success with that. So those would be something that you may want to incorporate into your arsenal of your fishing tackle. Again, the main ones for me has been the original down south and the burner shads for both of those. Redfish, trout, flounder, all the above have been being caught on both sizes of those. The Twisted Tea has been the most productive, continually to be the most productive for me in the last couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks even. But again, the Supernatural has been good. The Magic Grass has been good. Office Chicken of the Sea has been good. Get those. Watermelon Red has been good. The Mirror Little Johns, they've been productive as well. If you want to throw a top water bait, Spook Junior has been good. You can work those tight against the shoreline because we've had big water that's pushed in here. We had some coastal flood in the last few days, so that'll probably hang around for a little while. When that happens, though, that opens up a whole lot of areas for you to fish. Pushes lots of water into back lakes. Bait's been pushed back into a lot of these back lakes, and they're starting to show up there. Just need a little bit more water, which we have. So whichever back lakes you like to fish, or if you have access to some that you know of, then I would definitely work those areas, especially topwater baits. If you got the 16-ounce jig head is what I'm still throwing right now because we're still working thigh deep in less water, so you really want that bait to glide for you, and you can help locate those fish. And the redfish have been quality. Trout, again, they're all over the place size-wise. We're catching dinks up to, in the low 20s, 21, 20, 22. Catching some of those, lots of 16s, lots of 17s in that area as well. Again, the shale, you got the shale pad out here on the second chain of islands. You can work all around those areas there if you don't want to get out and wade that, because some of those areas get kind of soft, they get kind of mushy, so you may not want to get into that. So if you don't, get into get your trolling motor, get your spot lock if you have that particular type of trolling motor, and you can get there and you can work around these areas, throw in your plastics of whatever flavor that you like. Mine's going to be specifically down south most of the time. The Marker 54 jerk shrimp is starting to be productive for me. Free lining that thing, bouncing it off the bottom. If you're up in the grass areas fishing close to these shorelines on some of these, you'll start to notice there's lots of little bitty shrimp that are up in there, and you're starting to see these redfish are starting to push up into those areas. So keep that into mind no matter where you're at fishing, that these are always great options. Again, incorporate your majors and minors into your fishing day to continue to be productive. Jaybird Point up in here, that little lake or the little reef that's right there off the Jaybird Point. You got Jaybird Reef that's out there. You may want to fish around that. Get on top of it, wade it. If you don't want to wade it, get out there, throw your anchor, get your spot lock, whatever you've got, work around that thing. There's starting to be fish show up around some of these mid-bay reefs a little bit. Again, the hard-packed sand, they're starting to show up out on those areas. Areas that's got lots of grass that are mixed in with that hard-packed sand is starting to be really productive areas. Come on down here, Sherman's Back Lake, this area here, or the Vincent Slough Back Lake, whichever you like to look at it as. I know it is both. So this little lake here is one of my favorites to fish, is getting back in this thing, especially now that we've got some coastal flooding going on and that water's going to hang around for a little while. These back lakes that are here, the ones that are back up toward Jaybird, that area there, all the ones that are in Long Reef Bend, that area, if you want to get back in Fence, all those areas in the back lakes there as you head toward Vincent, all these back lakes are going to be super, super more water that's going to be in there. Lots of bait will be pushed back in these areas. Gives you lots of opportunities to find some redfish, find some black drum, some flounder will be in there. Trout will be pushed back in these areas. All these things will come into play big time. So topwater baits, I like to throw topwaters in these back lakes like that, because usually what happens is when that water's lower, you'll have that grass that's been growing. In some of these, it's grown pretty well, so it's pretty tall. So if you don't have enough water, that top water will be tough if you don't have single hooks on there. So it's almost like a weedless setup. When you got the trebles on there, you catch a lot of floating grass or grass that's just below the surface. With the extra water that we have now, that top water bait becomes really productive for you, man. You can throw that thing. You can work the shorelines on the front and the back. You can get out and walk across the potholes in the big grass flats that are out in the middle of these lakes. Work those baits across that. See what kind of water clarity you got. You know, if you've got darker water that's stained up, and white bellies, silver bellies, or anything that's just going to make a really good knock for you, like the Spook Junior, She Dog, any of those, and they got just a little bit different pitch to it. So if you've got a couple of different ones that you want to throw, make sure you have both of those in your box, because one may have a little bit more production than the other because of the pitch change. So that's one of the things you want to take in consideration. That, and then again, keep your 16th ounce jig heads tied on. If you're throwing an 1/8 ounce, you're going to have a difficult time with the grass. It's still just not tall enough to be able to do that, or the water's not high enough for you to be able to throw that consistency with the 1/8 ounce jig. 16th ounce is still really good. Now, if you're going to work the shorelines, you're going to work out front, then the 1/8 ounce will probably be just fine out in that area. We're still throwing the 16th for a lot of things. The original Twisted Tea, watermelon red, all those colors, white ice, purple rain, all those have been really productive in some of these back lakes. Burner shads, the supernatural, Twisted Tea, purple rain, all those have been my most productive colors for those particular baits. Again, the Spook Junior, I like it a lot, especially the one that looks like a little baby trout. It's got a little black back, tannish white belly with the little specks all over. If you've seen those, that's one of my go-tos as far as my top water bait goes. I love that particular bait, especially this time of year. Work this whole back lake, man. You've got areas that you can get in here further back, dump into those. All these are great wading areas. Fish will push back up in these, and you can, if you're fortunate enough on a particular day, you can find some tailing redfish be pushed back in some of these areas, and that's a lot of fun. Once you see those, just ease up on them and throw your baits across there and bounce across, and you'll have a lot of fun when you get those suckers hooked up. We've had a couple of those opportunities in the past week where we found some tailing redfish in some super skinny water. So something to be aware of and something to look for when you get into these areas. Again, when you get out of this area, work these shorelines. These fish are showing up. Trout specifically are showing up out here. Every so often you'll come across redfish, flounder as well, especially up tight against the shoreline. So if you're a big flounder person, you like to catch them with rod and reel, then you want to drag that bottom up there close to that edge to the shorelines and see if those fish are hanging in and around those. These back lake mouths can be productive. Again, if you got a bunch of water in there, I would work into the back lakes first and then work your way out. Then work the edges and the shorelines as you head down into Spalding in that area down there. Again, tremendous amount of bait that's in here. That's not an issue. So when you got so much bait that's working in the area, you want to make sure that you be able to make your baits stand out just a little bit more than most. So if you need to use a scented bait, that's fine. If you want to use a popping cork and say put the voodoo shrimp underneath it, or even a jerk shrimp underneath it, any of those kind of things there, just something to stand out to help those fish locate you and find your bait. Again, the majors and minors are always important things that you need to incorporate in your day. If you're not putting those somewhere in your fishing day, you're doing yourself a disservice, because at some point in time during that, in and around that time frame, that bite's going to really kick in, and your day will go from average to really good very fast. So continue to look these areas, continue to work these areas, and you'll continue to be productive. From the Turtle Pen area, this whole back shoreline, all the way up toward North Pass, Mission Bay, all this area up in here, all this hard-packed sand, man, you've got lots and lots of opportunities that you can do a lot of different things up and down this shoreline. You've got great little cliff areas that are further down as you get close to Copano Reef, that area there. But up and down this shoreline, man, there's great holes that are up and down this. If you fished it enough, you'll know where those particular areas are. If you don't know, find you a stretch of this beachfront here. Wind will play a factor for it, because if you get the real super strong southeast breeze that we typically are getting or have been having, then it becomes blown out on you pretty fast, so it makes it really difficult to fish. So the one thing that becomes in play then is that south shoreline towards Swan Lake, all back down in that area there, close to Port Bay. That's the shoreline is protected like that. So if you get a decent breeze that's not super strong, this whole back shoreline, Copano Reef, this is starting to has some fish starting to show up on it. All this area down in here, up and down here. Just look for your bait that's working at this. You can get out in these areas. You can wade this stuff. Make sure that your boat's nice and secure, especially if you got a pretty strong wind that's kicking across that. You want to make sure that you don't lose that sucker. So that's always, safety is always an important thing, as we're really getting to some really volatile weather patterns that are starting to kind of kick up on us. It's kind of everywhere. It's crazy. So big tides that's dropped out, big tides are coming back, big blood moon coming in here, all kinds of stuff affecting everything that we're doing fishing-wise. But all these areas here, man, there's trout that are showing up here. There's scattered redfish here, an occasional flounder or two up and down that back shoreline, out on the reefs out here. These are areas that you really need to start targeting as you get more opportunities to get out on the water. Again, always got to locate your food source. Make sure that there's bait working around these areas here. Again, if your water's got a little stain to it, chocolatey milk, whatever, make sure you just got a little chartreuse tail on there. If we've got some white on there, some orange on there, to help that thing kind of stand out in that type of water. Noise making stuff, corks. Use the corks that you can make lots of noise with. They'll help those fish locate where your bait is. Scent is another great thing, whether if you like gulp or if you like spray on, like Procure, that kind of stuff. Any of that kind of stuff is always helpful. There's baits that are on the market that are already infused with scents, like Mirror Lure, AM Fishing has them. There's a few others that's got some bait. Of course, the gulp, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, all those baits are really helpful when you got really stained or nasty water. It can help you locate your fish, and then it'll locate your fish. It'll help find your baits. But that said, in these waters here off of this, the down south and Supermodel have been good. The regular version has been good. I've been using the Mirror Lure Provokers and Little Johns as well in these particular waters here. You just have to see what your water clarity is to see what flavors that you want to go with. Rule of thumb, dark water, dark baits, clear water, clear baits. That's just a rule of thumb, and then you work off of that accordingly to what your fish are reacting to. Profile size, we're in our 10-day transition period heading toward a new moon, so that tells you you're the wild card days are coming up. So what that means is you've got all different kinds of fishing days ahead of you, so you can have great days, poor days, average days, above average, below average, whatever. It's going to be all over. That's why they're wild card days. So make sure that you got multiple choices in your box or in your boat that you have access to, that you can throw different things to see what the fish are really wanting, because on the wild card days, some days you're going to have to work a little more than others. But again, always incorporate your majors and minors into your fishing day, no matter what the scenario is, always. So whenever that major or minor is taking place, that you can be in an area that's got some fish holding, you got some bait working in the area, you got a little structure in there, everything that you can stack into your favor that's going to help you, it will maximize your fish catching opportunities. So again, food source, color choice, profile size bait, majors and minors, you'll locate fish up here.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.